Welcome to Dad Talk Today. My name is Eric Carroll, and we have an amazing show lined up for you. We are fighting for fathers all across the United States and all across the world where you can be glad to be dad. Stick around, guys. Dad Talk Today is about to begin. Hey everybody, welcome to Dad Talk Today. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you're having a great weekend. Here recently, I've been doing something that it can be a little hard for me to do at times, but I realized I need to do a little bit more of it. And that was just blogging. And a lot of times that I'm talking about these situations, there's a lot of those personal feelings and attachments that are bringing these things out. And I've been getting messages from guys saying, man, I feel like you was in my head. You were explaining my situation dead on. And I realized kind of how this comes together. For one, society has told men they just need to man up. They need to stop crying and move on and not talk. Well, we've got a suicide rate that's 7 times higher in men than we do women. And that's because I believe many times they're not reaching out for support. They're not talking to other people that are going through these situations. And the more that we can identify with people that have been through similar situations, we can build that community where they feel that trust. We can build this relationship with everybody. So I've tried a little bit of this vulnerability in connecting with the audience that might be going through some of these issues. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that more tonight. I named the show From Divorce to Alienation because as much as those two topics are talked about a lot, rarely are they talked about in the instance of starting from divorce and then how it went into the alienation. What were some of those red flags? What was that process like when this person was going through it? And what were those emotions that these guys were having to deal with? Now, ladies, if you're here watching tonight, you're going to hear me coming at this from a father's angle because that's what I am. And I know what it was like being a man going through this system. So I'm talking to these other guys. But if you've been through alienation or you've been through this process as well, you are more than welcome. Here's the deal. These guys don't hardly have anywhere where they can come and feel proud about being who they are and speaking to other people. That's what Dad Talk is about. That's what this community is about. So if you're going through this too, we are not discrediting you, but I'm building up my brothers right here. So guys, if you hear any of these situations, like when I'm talking about the divorce or I'm talking about the alienation and you say, well, you know what? That was me. I went through that. Put it down in the comments. Let other people know that you've experienced this too. Maybe you've got a situation that we don't go over tonight and you say, hey, this is what I've went through. Put it down here because I can guarantee, even though if I haven't been through it, there's somebody on here that has. And that's how we build that support system. And we start being a listening ear to people that need it. Men, we got to start speaking up. Because if we don't speak up, they don't know what we're going through. Right now, you're just a bunch of deadbeats that don't want to pay child support and don't want anything to do with your kids. And we'll get into that topic a little bit more later on. Let's start off. Divorce. Divorce can be one of the hardest things that a father can go through. At the same time, we know that marriage is something a lot of people aren't doing nowadays. Knowing what I know about the system now and what's happened to other people, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. I do believe in that nuclear family, and I believe in what it gives and the benefits that the children get and the parents get being in that nuclear family relationship. But we know what it takes to get out of that marriage and what divorce costs and some of the other things that go along with it. So a lot of people are just, we're getting a house, we're going to date, we're going to have children, and we're going to build a family. We're just not going to have the marriage certificate. We're going to make that oath between us and God or whatever it is, and we're going to keep the government out of it. If that's you, I don't blame you, but just to say, I'm going to come at it from the divorce angle tonight. But if you're somebody that's just broke up, you didn't get married, which I was in one of those relationships myself, this is for you. Okay. It's going to be the same thing. It's just how I'm going to present it. But you have a routine. We come home We have a spouse that we're used to being with, that we share our lives with, that we pay the bills, we build the house, we get the white picket fence, we get the car, we get the dog, we have our children, and that routine becomes part of our everyday lives. This can go on for years. Some it doesn't go on for as long. And, some people see it coming a mile away. Maybe over the years, there just starts becoming some disconnect and that relationship starts to break apart. I would say in those cases, most of the time, that might just be a nasty divorce, but I don't know that it really goes into alienation. I think there's so many red flags when we're talking about alienation that happens in our relationship before that child starts getting used as a weapon. And we're going to go over those as well. But when you've got that routine, okay, and then maybe one day, one of the number one leading causes of divorce or a relationship breaking up right now is adultery. Now, here's a father that loves his spouse and he's coming home to his children and he finds out, guess what? She's been messing around with another man. Maybe it just started happening. Maybe it's been going on for years. And there's this dagger that just goes right there in your heart, comes out, goes back in. And there's so many emotions going on with me right now. I've got anger, I've got sadness, I've got depression. And one of the number one emotions, loneliness, which is going to be a very big topic for this discussion tonight. It starts coming in and we start going crazy. We don't know what to do. Not only am I losing my family, I know this is about to cost a lot of money that I might not have. I'm struggling at work. I'm living paycheck to paycheck. Maybe there was two people in the house that were paying the bills. Now it's just going to be on me. Maybe I'm not even going to get the house. Where am I going to live? What am I going to do? And now they were the ones that was committing adultery. They were the ones that was going outside the marriage or doing whatever it was. And guess who's going to pay the consequences? I am, because the courts don't really take adultery into consideration anymore. And she just went off with somebody else. It's not that big. You did, you emotionally abandoned her for years. There's all these excuses that come up as to why they did this to you. And what we're seeing here is these men are just left bloodied on the street, broken up in their heads, not knowing who to go to, not knowing where to turn. And society's telling him to just man up and get over it. You might have just lost everything you value in your life, but man up and get over it. Nothing pisses me off more than that when I hear somebody say that. You never know what it's like until you walk a mile in somebody's shoes. And even if you haven't went through it, you better be careful, because it might be your son one day. It might be your grandchildren one day. And these things come to bite us back in the butt. People need to be aware of this before it happens. One of the common scenarios that happens when somebody starts going through this, they jump straight into a new relationship. All right. As different of a subject as maybe like substance abuse or alcoholism or something like that is, it's so very similar to what happens in divorce, because that routine, this was our world right here and we loved it. It's gone. Okay. And now it's just left this big void, this big hole in our heart. And I've got all this pain. I've got all this emotion. What am I going to do with it? And we find things to fill those voids. I think that's how addiction and all that starts. There is some type of void. It could be sexual abuse, physical abuse. There was something that happened growing up. Nobody was born wanting to be a drug addict. There was something that substance masked, and relationships are no different. When I'm going through this in this process, maybe I want to make them jealous, make them feel like I feel. You know how betrayed I feel right now. I want you to know what that was like. Maybe that was your reasoning for doing it, or maybe you just wanted to feel loved. Maybe in that relationship, your value came from how much your partner loved you. And I think that's very true for a lot of us. So we jump into this before we are healed, because we don't want to feel that pain anymore. We find that temporary solution, and rarely ever is that going to work, guys. It's time to stop and reflect on what we can do to get over this. It might be one of the hardest things that you've ever had to go through in your life, but you will get through it. No matter how much this right here tells you you're never going to be happy again. You're never going to find anyone else. You're never going to have that life. Everything about your life is meaningless now. It will come back. You've just got to take the time. If you don't have somebody that's loving you right now, or that went off to love somebody else, that's time for you to step in, as cliche as it is, and say, I love me. I was worth it. I was a good husband. I worked hard. I was a good father. And you know what? I didn't deserve for that to happen to me. At the same time that you're finding that value, I think it's important that we step back, lay it all on the table. One of the best things for personal growth, there is not a perfect person on the face of this earth. In our marriage, in our relationship, at work, whatever it is we do daily, we make mistakes, and there is some responsibility that we can take. There is places for improvement, no matter who you are. You can step back objectively and say, what part of this did I have? Okay. And if I did, I'm going to own it. That still doesn't mean you should have committed adultery. That still doesn't mean you should have went and done this or this. You could have came to me. You could have talked. By that time, most of the time it's going to be too late, but at least we know for the future, this was my part of it. That way, when alienation or anything else starts happening, the divorce and the accusations are getting thrown back and forth. Well, look, this was my part. I'll own my part. But what about you? And somebody that's done these things to you, especially, I hate talking about narcissism because that is the most popular word that's used in breakups now. And even the narcissists claim narcissism. You'll see both of them calling each other narcissists. And the more that we can step back and accept the responsibility that we have, a narcissist can't do that. And people see through that. I can accept what I got. Ask them what they did. Okay. This was what I did. I did not deserve this. And so if we start off from that point, we can so much better see objectively what's going on here. So what happens next? Again, you had two people that were paying for the bills. You had somebody at home taking care of the children. Now you're going to have to do all of this on your own, and you're dealing with these emotions. What is that process like for one of these guys? One of the hardest things to do, I can say this from personal experience, is going to work. Many of us might have a very dangerous job, or it's somewhere that you really got to be paying attention to what you're doing. But the whole reason we go to work in the first place, the whole reason that we go and try to make money or to make a living is because we want to support our family. We want to be that provider. Men, we're called to be that provider. I think there's that inner natural response that makes us want to be that provider. And here we are trying to do our job. But the whole reason that we're doing it in the first place is because of this family. Now I don't have it. You expect him at work to be able to focus 100% when he knows his wife is gone, his kids are gone. He doesn't even know if he's going to have a home to come home to. He doesn't know if the dog's going to be there. And now the child, what? I'm at work and you want me to focus on work while this is going through? And we don't see enough employers really taking that into consideration. I'd like to see them have more support, but it's just not there. And I understand they're trying to run a business. They don't have time to deal with that. If there's any of you guys that are going through that, there is a support group, Dad Talk Today support group on Facebook. It's private. It's 100% free, where you can talk to thousands of other parents that are going through these situations without having to worry about everybody else seeing it. We are here. We are here to support you. Robert Garza does a very good job for that. Just make a request to join and you'll be in there. They make daily videos. So there is somewhere to get support. But at their work, rarely is there any resources to help these guys. And even then, they're told not to talk about it. So I'm just fighting this battle alone. Okay. And it feels like the whole world is against you. You need a support system. And I think the number one support system that people go to is family. And that has its advantages and it has its disadvantages. Let me tell you why. You had this spouse that you was building this life with. You had kids with them and they become a part of the family. They were a part of the family. Now, when they cheat on you or whatever it is that they do, and they leave outside of that family and they take the kids away from grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, siblings, whoever it is, they have emotional attachments to this too. There might be anger, sadness, depression, loneliness. All of that can be going back on them too. So you're going to people that have the same emotions, and that negativity can feed back on other negativity. I'm not saying not to talk to them. They will. Family is usually the number one people that are going to be there for you and nobody else. But find a friend, find somebody that's been through it. I've always said, for even like drug addicts that go to rehab, rarely does that work. Why? You got a doctor sitting here telling you all these steps that you got to take, but they don't know what was churning up here in your mind that made you do that in the first place. But when another addict talks to another addict about that process, some of the things that they were doing, they feel like they can connect, and we know what was going on. And I've seen them be better help to other addicts than a professional has ever been. Somebody that's been through this process, that's made it through, that's where you're wanting to get to in that healing process. Find them. And if they'll be a listening ear to you, man, don't fight that battle alone. That loneliness, that is also something that creeps in. I come home to that empty house that was once filled with my family that I sat down and ate supper with every night, that we went off on the weekends. We went to the movies, we played ball, whatever it is you were doing. And it's just you now. sitting there staring at the walls. Maybe you ain't got no furniture. You don't have TV to watch. You don't have anything. Guys, this is the reality for a lot of the fathers that are following this show right now. This is what they go through. Their whole world is stripped from them. And then the process that they're told that they've got to do to correct this is what's known as family court. This is where you need to go to get answers. And we'll get into that industry here in just a little bit and tell you what it does for them. When it comes to cases of alienation, there are some red flags that you really need to be aware of. And there's number one that I talked about on the show several times. I have to remember, I feel like I talk about these things sometimes all the time ad nauseum, and there's nothing I can talk about that I haven't already. But you got to remember, there's 20,000 new followers that just came in this month that might be going through these situations that didn't see that show a year ago or 2 years ago, and they are needing that support now. So if there is something that you've heard before, we are saying it again for a reason. And if you're somebody that's new here and you're going through it now, man, I'm glad you're here. And I promise you there's a lot of support. Go back through that library. One of the number one red flags I want you guys to be looking out for, and if you're in a relationship and this is going on now, my suggestion is get out, because it should be just smacking you upside the face. Alienators, as much as I don't like talking about narcissism, when we talked about that earlier, very rarely is an alienator not going to be the narcissist. I think there is cases where the family law courts can contribute to alienation because it makes the mom feel like she's got the upper hand and that she's doing what is justified. But I think that's a very rare case. Probably happens more than I'll be able to say on here. But in alienation, there is definitely narcissism that shows up in that relationship over time. Let's talk about John Mass for a second. John Mass was murdered this past February when he went to pick up his kids. Last Thanksgiving, he came on the show to talk about what that process was like for him before all of this went down. And we talked about this subject right here. I'm not just saying this, guys. I've met a lot of people in this life and talked to many faces. When I tell you that his family, the Mass family, is one of the most beautiful families I've ever met in my life, one of the most humble, supportive, salt of the earth people I've met in my life, I mean it. He had an amazing family, and they was there for John every step of the way, whether it was financially, emotionally, support. They showed up at the court. Even the day he died, 2 of his siblings was there, even though that John told them they didn't have to come. They traveled 4 hours away to be there. I'm just trying to paint the picture of how close of a family this was and how loving and supportive. But he said, when they was in the relationship, his ex started just kind of putting that wedge between him and his family, was trying to isolate him from them. If you've got somebody that starts trying to take you away from mom or dad, maybe your friends, it could be your coworkers, it could be anybody, there's your first red flag. And I'll tell you why. A narcissist craves control of every situation. When you can speak, when you can eat, when you do anything, they've got to have it. And one way of assuming that is making sure that any other outside influences that could speak against them and help you, hey, man, snap out of it. I don't want them in here. Because once I got them out of there, I can sink my claws in. I can get that ultimate control on you. And you feel like there's no way out. There's nothing you can do. And you listen to it more easily because you don't have anybody else telling you opposite. So if I can take you away from your family, that's when this thing's going to start getting dark. In relationships, vulnerability is how we build trust, and trust is how we build love. You find this spouse, you find this partner, you start giving them intimate details about your life. You tell them these inner thoughts when you were alone and you thought that nobody else understood. You tell them these worries, these fears, everything that you've been through. You tell them about your past and your personal growth and how you're trying to be better. You show them your imperfections, we should say. And in that process, that builds up that trust, and that trust ends up building that love that we should have in a relationship. Your partner should be a safe place to come, and whatever it is that's going on in the world, I want to talk to you because I need to talk to somebody. And we do that. When you're doing this with an alienator, guys, you are treading very dangerous ground, because very rarely when this alienation starts happening, is it going to be used to show that, hey, that's who I was. I'm not that person anymore. It's going to be used to paint who you are now. Every single time I'm going to use things that are 10, 15, 20 years old to make people think that's who it is now, because it's rarely about the child. Okay. When the child is used as a weapon to hurt you. Okay. I can no longer use your family against you because you wised up to my BS and you're talking to them again. And they told you that I was crazy. I can no longer use all these other people. But the one thing I've got left, I can use that child. Okay. But when these smear campaigns and these projections start happening, it's the only time it's going to be about the child is this is who they was in the past. This is who you were in the past. I'm going to use that to paint who you are now, to say why I'm keeping you away from your child, why you do not need to be in your children's lives. Now, all those fears, all those imperfections, all those personal feelings, that vulnerability that you was using to build the relationship with that person now becomes a weapon formed against you. It is very true, man. And anybody that's been through it right now, I guarantee you they can tell you that happened to me, and it happened to me full force. It's still happening to me. And if you're going through this, it will continue to happen to you, because they've got to make people feel like how horrible of a person you were because you left me. Alienators often talk about abandonment. You abandon them. And now, because you abandon them, when it's just more in reality, I don't want to be in this anymore. I don't want to be with you, but I want to be with my child. But because you don't want to be with them, you can't be with your child. Everything that I had before this has got to be used to keep you from your child. That's the only thing I got left to control you. You think you're getting rid of me, but you're not getting rid of me. The scary part about that process is the family law courts protect this. They turned a blind eye to it. And I'll tell you why. I made a post yesterday talking about they cannot profit without conflict. When it comes to divorce, I don't know that there's a topic out there that causes more conflict than the topic of divorce. When a family is splitting up, there's going to be conflict. We've got to fuss over the house. We got to fuss over the kids. We got to fuss over the car. We got to fuss over the dog. Who's going to get what? And they know that's a lot of conflict. So if we actually had legislation that leveled that playing field, here's two people that don't want to be together anymore. Okay. What is the best scenario right here? Split everything evenly when it comes to the house, when it comes to the kids. Let's just split it right down the line. Let's take the conflict out of it. You guys do what's in the best interest of the child. And you just come together. You might not be together anymore, but you can still parent your children. And we can make legislation to do that. They have in some states, but the ones that aren't listening to it are the ones that want that conflict, because they know the little Willy Wonka's chocolate factory of making cash for kids, that they've got this industry. They love that industry. 60 billion a year. Makes more than all of the other courts combined. And in that process, it's not just going to be attorneys. It's not just going to be judges. It's going to be custody evaluators. It's going to be guardian ad litems. It's going to be all these different experts. And these experts tell you everything in the world. Oh, I can help you get your kids. All you need is me to come in there and show them what's happening. They get in the court, and now you just racked up 10, 20, 30, 40, $50,000. And you got absolutely zero done in your case. Some of these guys are spending their life savings to be in their children's life because, let's be honest, they got the best product in the world. There's that natural desire, guy. There's that natural desire inside of you, dad, that wants to be with your children. And they know that. And through that conflict, through these accusations that are being made against you, not only are you losing your family, now they start making these accusations against you and completely destroying your character. They want complete character assassination. Of course, you're going to fight back. Okay. And the courts know that. And the more that you fight, the more money they're going to make. Let's get on that for a second. Let's go back to the process and the emotion of it. When talking about that conflict and the accusations and stuff, what you got to be careful with is the gaslighting is going to start when it comes with the smear campaigns. A lot of times the smear campaigns are used just to get a reaction out of you. A narcissist and an alienator loves to argue, guys. If you could sit there and go back and forth on the internet all day long, back and forth in emails, and talk about they will talk about everything besides the child. It's going to be your relationship, something you did in the past, how you was wrong, how you left them, all these other things. It's never going to be about the child, because it's not about the child. The child's just my way that I can keep you in this conversation with you or with me, and you can't get away. So what do? Of course, if you're being accused of what God, I've seen physical abuse, sexual abuse, drug use, stealing money. You could be accused of all these different things, and they'll get online. They want people to see all these accusations about you, and you have to just sit there and take it. Most of the time, people are going to want to speak up. They're going to be like, she is lying. I've got the text messages to show you that she's lying. I can prove every one of these things are false. And what happens? You're playing right into their game. Now, is that fair? Should you have to sit there silent? No. And the only way that you can do this is to sit there silent, then take this to family court where you're told that you're going to get justice. And we see John Mass is dead. Kevin's daughter this past week is dead, 9 years old, stabbed to death. These are guys, Jonathan Vanderhagen, he told the system, if you do not give me custody of my son is going to die. He was a year and a half old. His baby boy died. These are guys that went through the system. They did it the right way. And these are the results that they are getting. There are parents, there are kids that are dying trying to get through the system, trying to do it the way that you say they need to do it. Your system has failed. Your system is completely outdated. It's not accurate, and you need to take a look at it. You need to step outside of this cash for kids industry that you've made and really do what's in the best interest of the children. Because if your country starts falling apart like this, you're not going to have a country to be a politician for. You know, the crazy thing is these guys run for office in hopes of making a better country for us, right? And getting this legislation. Then we've been to 42 states since the beginning of this year, telling them about it. A lot of these guys hearing about it for the first time. You have to educate them step by step. And here's somebody that ran for office that could fix this, and they don't even know what's going on with you. Our justice system, our political system, it's Democrats and it's Republicans. I'm not letting anybody get a pass. Over half of them are attorneys. They got in there for a reason. They know what's going on. And these guys don't feel like they're going to get any help there either. So now all these different systems are failing. And this guy still feels alone. Now I've done spent all my money. Where does justice come from next? That alienator's sitting over there with a smile. And you know what? The courts love the alienator. Because the alienator is where the conflict comes in, okay? If you have a very level-headed parent that can do what they need to do in the best interest of the child, they want to share that, you know what, we're not together anymore. We need to do this for our kids. That's the guy that's got to defend himself. That's the guy that is about the child. That's the guy that's going to pay. And they know this. The courts protect this every single day. These are the people that you're protecting when you allow this system to operate the way it is right now. And that gaslight, man, that can be very hard. Again, it goes to character assassination. It's not about when you can see your child. How many of you guys, if you're watching this right now, if you're experiencing alienation, when you reach out about your kid, it turns into everything else besides when you can see your kid? It's going to turn back to your relationship, who you are as a person, something that you did in the past. And you know what happens? These guys try for so long, then they spend their money. They try to do what's in the best interest. They try to get along and nothing ever happens. So they check out. They check out. And those are the ones that you're calling deadbeats. I have met tons of alienated fathers that went through all of these processes and finally just said, I can't do it anymore. And you're going to sit there and call him a deadbeat. What does it feel like to be an alienated parent? What is some of that process like? I can honestly tell you guys, it's one of the hardest things you'll ever go through in your life because, you know, the breakup already leaves you lost in your mind, not knowing how to process these things. And now you're being told that you're not worthy enough to be with your own flesh and blood, your child. And that can have some devastating effects. When these parents talk about having PTSD after going through family court and after going through alienation, they're not kidding. You sit there and spend months, years trying to talk to somebody that you can't talk to about when you can see your child and see what happens to you in your head. They check out. And for many of them, I'd rather see them check out than kill themselves. I said that on air. Yeah, I did. Because this system is not going to give them any justice. And then when they do try to go on in life with that stigma and this stench on them, it can have so many other devastating effects. I'll give you one. I've debated on whether to talk about this. I went to do it the other day, and much like the narrative, even though I'm out here shouting it to the rooftops every single day, if I sat here and told you that it doesn't still bother me, I'd be a liar. There was an incident that happened earlier this week, and it was difficult for me, man. I'm gonna try to show you a little bit of vulnerability here. It's been 3 years since I've seen my daughter. A lot of the process that we're talking about here is based upon my emotions, what it was like going through in my head when going through this battle. You try and then you just don't get it, and you're hearing all this stuff about how you're a bad person, and even though you know it's lies, it starts to get to you up here. And since that last time I saw my child, I haven't held a baby since, because I had one that I was being denied. And I don't know, anytime I would see somebody with their child, there was emotions that went through me that I'll never be able to explain. Earlier this week, I was somewhere, and, one of my family members had a child that they was babysitting and everything, and she kept coming up to me, guys, doing everything in her power to get my attention. And I was doing my best to try to avoid it. And it was from that PTSD and from that damage. And finally she kept going on, and I reached down and I picked her up, and she looked in my face and started to smile. And I felt I don't even know how to put it. How can I do this? And I can't even see my own. How many memories were lost? I am a loving parent. This is what I want to be doing. But because of having to go through this process, I'm not allowed. I took her outside and let her play with the dog and let her play with the goats, and it was healing. It was healing. In the relationship and through my life, guys, I made many mistakes. I struggled with addiction when I was younger, pretty badly. I can honestly say I am 12 years sober now. I beat that. If I can beat that, I can beat anything. I've been through divorce. I've been through these relationships. I've been through alienation. But along the way, I made a lot of mistakes. But I can honestly say, when I sobered up and, around 2011, my life became working and being a family man and a husband. And I love that life. I love that life more than anything. After I got through a divorce, I was messed up in my head, and I rushed into a relationship. And that's where a lot of these problems are stemming from now. I wasn't ready. And I can admit that to you. I wasn't ready. And that relationship, I tell you what, man, I was on pins and needles day and night. My kids were on pins and needles day and night. And I had to get out. And then you start seeing all this. And that can be a hard thing to carry. It can be a very hard thing to carry, because you start feeling like a screw up. I wasn't good enough. Maybe it's me, right? So then what happens when you got to be careful with this too. I talk about self-ownership. We can take too much ownership sometimes, and then we start becoming the worst evaluators of ourselves, because we're just trying to find answers as to what's going on. So much of this does not make sense. And the more we try to make sense out of it, the further away that we get from sense. And finding that self-value again is very hard. But guys, man, it just takes some time. It takes some time to love yourself again, to get in there. As much as we talk about the system, and I encourage you guys to do it the right way, my heart is very heavy right now when you got to go stand over somebody's casket. When you got to talk to a parent whose child died, you realize how serious this is. This isn't just a topic of parental alienation or family court. This is a story of life. This is a story of what's going on in our world. And it is not rare. When I started this, I thought it was rare. Why? Because media doesn't report on it. Nobody reports on it. It's taboo, is what it is. It's taboo. So when somebody does die or a child dies, that's when you see the media come and get all over it, right? Because now we've got a story we can report on. And then once that dies back down, it goes over here in the corner and gets swept under the rug until the next incident happens. So it makes us feel like we're alone and that this isn't happening to many people. But it wasn't until starting this, I realized this is happening to more people than they can ever imagine. Guys, if you could see the amount of people that are reaching out saying, this is my situation right now. Since February, since John died, I get it several times a day. I'm the next John Mast. What do I say? I'm not an attorney. I'm not an expert. I don't want to be one. I just want to see this system fixed. But what do you say? Because these are people that are reaching out for help. Do I tell them to go to our justice system? Like Jonathan Vander Hagen, like John Mast, like Kevin Maddox? Do I tell them to go to that justice system that failed them? What do you tell them? What? Do I tell them to go talk to their legislators about this legislation and tell them all these statistics and the joys of shared parenting when I know good and well that the bar is going to come in there and throw money and they're not going to listen? This is the battle that we're going through. This is the battle that we're going through, and it's ridiculous. There are so many broken people out here right now that all they want is their kids. I want to go on with my life, right the wrong that I had, whether it was my fault, whether it was somebody else's, it was my past relationship. I just want to move on. I'm not a bad guy. I want to be a dad and I want to rebuild my life and get over this, but they're stuck dealing with this person that's doing this to them and the system that wants that conflict there, and they need that alienator so they can profit. I don't know where I was going with this, but there's some more of your vulnerability. This is what goes on inside of my head every night when I lay down. We talk about getting change in this system. We talk about how we want it to change. What are some of the ways? The honest, the honesty behind this, guys, is none of us have a handbook. And we've been trying every way that we can, be it through media, be it through legislation, be it through whatever. And there's so many roadblocks that these guys end up hitting. And most of them got to work a full-time job. So everybody wants to say, we're going to go rally in front of the courthouses. We're going to do this. And hardly nobody shows up because they're at work trying to put food in their kids' mouths or a roof over their head from the situations that they're going through. Or every bit of their money is going into an attorney or to a guardian ad litem or custody evaluator expert that's promising them all these things. And they can't show up. So they do such a good job at making sure that this does not see the light of day. And I'm supposed to tell these guys to go talk to this system. You know, if you had to walk through one of their shoes, you'd realize how serious this is. I don't know that there's anything else I can say. If you know that there's somebody that's going through this, be their listening ear today. Give them a hug. Tell them that they are loved and appreciate them. They're already being devalued. They're already coming to an empty home. They're already spending all of their money. They're already being silent about it. And when they do speak, you're telling them to shut up. We just had the guy on that said 4.2 million men experienced domestic violence last year compared to 3.5 million women. How many guys are you seeing on the billboard? None. How many shelters do you see for men? None. They just need to get over it. What is that saying to the future generation? We are headed down a slippery slope here, guys. And it's just going to get more and more dangerous. And as it gets more dangerous, the more people are going to feel lonely, the more they're going to feel confused, the more they're going to feel like they hit the end of the road and that they got no options left. It's up to us to do what we're doing here right now, to encourage them, to get them involved. And let's find out the solution together. If there's anybody out there that tells you they've got the solution, I'd like to see it, because people have been saying that for decades. The only thing I know to do now is to find everybody that's going through this and get them to speak up at once. Maybe then that industry won't be able to sweep you under the rug anymore. So that's the angle I'm going to take from it. I know what it's like to be in you guys' shoes. I remember what those days was like, not wanting to even get out of bed, not sleeping, not eating. Who here knows about the divorce diet? At the time I went through it, I think I was around 265. I went down to 200 pounds in like a couple of months. I wasn't eating. I wasn't sleeping. At work, I was falling asleep at the red lights when I would be driving, not knowing where I was when I woke up. It was all I could think about, what's going on. I wasn't living. I found my temporary solution that I thought was going to be the magic answer. Wanted to get right back into a relationship, rebuild that. What did I do? I screwed things up. I went way too fast. I didn't realize that, when you want something so bad, I wanted to be the husband. I wanted to be the father. I wanted to have that nuclear family. When you want that so bad that it's easy, the next time you see something, you're it. Because I got that void to fill, and I need to fill it fast because I don't want to feel this anymore. Grab you, bring it over here. You're it. And if you're in that type of mind frame, that's where you can make the biggest mistakes of your life. The biggest. And I was there. I felt like nobody cared. Didn't want to look at myself in the mirror. I couldn't stand the way I looked. I couldn't stand the way I talked. I couldn't look at you in the face. I lost the ability to look at people in their eyes when I talked to them. I looked like a beat up puppy dog. And I remember I knew that. And when they would do it, I would still tell you, like, look up, dude, look up, talk to. And I couldn't do it. There was nothing about me that I was happy with. And that process was hard. I remember my credit cards getting completely maxed out. I remember trying to work extra hours, begging my boss, get me some more work. If anybody calls out or if anybody does something, hey, throw me the ball, coach, throw me the ball. I need to get in there. People would make, jokes. Oh, he's working too much, or he wants too much money. And what it was, guys, man, like I was barely scratching to get by. I was doing what I had to do when I could barely be there in the first place. I know what that process is like. Then you come home to that empty house and you're sitting there. My kids used to play in this living room every night when I came home. There used to be toys scattered around. I used to sit at this table and eat supper with my family when I'm not even eating because I can't afford to buy food right now. You want to know what that loneliness is like? Nobody wants to know that. So why do people get in these relationships that they probably shouldn't have in the first place? There's many reasons. And before you judge, know what it's like to be inside of them. Know what it's like to be inside of their mind, even for just 1 second. I promise you, you will be screaming to get out. These are the mistakes that we make. Unless you're doing physical abuse, drug use, sexual abuse, or like just complete emotional abuse or whatever, why do you keep somebody from their children? I don't know about for you guys, but I talk about my struggles with addiction and some of the other things that I went through. The only thing that allowed me to grow up and be who I needed to be was being able to be a dad. I screwed a lot of things up in my life. I screwed up. I've been through many relationships. I was on drugs. I filled those voids with success. I worked with bands. I thought being around bands and celebrities gave me some value in my life. It was all trash, man. Everything was temporary. And I tried all these things. Nothing worked. The one thing that worked that helped me get my life back on track was being a father. And if I wouldn't have had that opportunity, I don't know where I'd be. But because I had that opportunity, I'm proud of who I am. When I look at myself in the mirror, I mean, you could have made me more like George Clooney or Brad Pitt, but I'm fine with this guy. He worked hard. He made mistakes, but he did his best. Being dad got me to that point. Because when I was in that loneliness, coming home to that empty house, not knowing what was going on, the only thing that kept me going, guys, because I didn't want to, the only thing that kept me on this earth, that made me get up every day, put my pants on, get in that car and go to work and get out there and do my best, the only thing was those baby girls of mine. When I didn't have no value for me, my kids is what gave me that value. So when you see that meme, they don't know I need them more than they need me right now. And that might seem crazy for some, but there is going to be moments where as a parent, you might need your children more than they need you. That was the moment. That was the moment that I needed them because they gave me purpose. They gave me a reason to continue on. They gave me a reason to keep fighting. And that's the reality of what it's like to be a father. Being in this situation, I can honestly say, not just me, thousands of guys that I have talked to since the start of this, the only reason they are sitting in that chair that right now, as an alienated father or completely broke from what they went through in family court, is because their sex is male, because they are a man, because they are a dad. And that's sad. That is very sad. In saying that, does that mean a mom can't go through it? No, it does not. But I'd say 98% of y'all don't know what it's like to go through that just because of being a dad. Why do I talk about dad talk? Why do I talk about father's rights? Because all of that experience that we talked about tonight, that we covered, comes to us because of that one little thing. And then they're calling us deadbeats. We're just supposed to sit back. We're supposed to be PC. We're not supposed to talk about it while this is what's going on. No, man. No, that ain't me. That ain't dad talk. Dad talk's going to get in here and we're going to do what we're doing right now. And we are going to bring up a generation of men that are proud to be who they are. They're glad to be dad. And they're going to speak about this. And I promise you, before I die, the system will change. Do I know how I'm going to do it yet? Do I know how we are going to do it yet? No. But don't mess with dad. Don't take away a daddy's purpose because he will fight just like he'll spend that money in court to get his children, just like he'll do all these other things and keep in there and keep fighting. When you take that away from him, you're messing with somebody that will go to the ends of this earth to be daddy. And do it to make sure that anybody else that is going through this never has to experience it either. Why am I so obsessed with changing this system? What if that's my grandson? I didn't have a son. I wanted a son every single time, and every time it ended up being a girl. And you know what? That was the best thing God ever did to me. It was the best thing. Because I had to step outside my boxes, what I was comfortable with, and I had to get inside their heart and become their dad and show that compassion. And it has done so much for me. I couldn't have wanted it any other way. But I know one day out of those 4 girls, I might have a grandson. And you know what? It could happen to one of my girls too. What happens when they start to go through this and they look back? Granddaddy, You had a chance. You had to show you were doing all this. What happened? Now I'm going through it. Our life is temporary. We only have so much time on this earth. All this stress, everything that you're going through right now, the divorce, the financial problems, it is so temporary, guys, and it will be over with like that. And one day it starts over with somebody else. The cycle of life, ours ends and theirs begins. But just because we won't be here anymore doesn't mean our legacy won't. My children and my grandchildren and their children, that will be my legacy. And I don't plan on passing that on to them. I speak openly the vulnerability, that process, so that they know not to make those same mistakes. And you know, the thing about children, even though we as parents try to tell them the things we do, or that we did when we make mistakes so they won't do it, a lot of times they're going to do it because they're human too. They're not perfect. No matter how good of a parent you are, your kids are going to make mistakes. And the more that they can relate to mommy or daddy and they're not put down, they say, what did daddy do? What did mommy do? That's where our influence kicks in and it guides them through life. I want them to know this is what I went through. You know, take a little bit of a different approach. And if something does happen, here's a little roadmap to hear how I got through this. You know, and that's why I do this for other dads. That's why I talk about this vulnerability. There's somebody right now that's traveling down that dark, lonesome road that seeks to destroy them, that they're just getting into this process. They think they're going to find some justice in this system. They think that somewhere around is going to be a solution. And for 75% of you, you're hitting a wall. And where do they turn? You're not alone. You're just not. And those tricks that are going to come in your head when the alienation, the gaslighting, that loneliness creeps in, and then you're hearing all these accusations that you made. I feel very sorry for these parents that have been through false accusations of like sexual abuse and physical abuse and such as that, because I can't even imagine the stigma and the way society would treat you. You know, when I first started the show, when somebody would write in or try to get in touch with me and they said they had been through sexual allegations or physical allegations, like, let me get off this call somehow. I'm against that. I'm against domestic violence. And if you touch a kid or you do something to a kid, I'm not somebody you want to talk to. But when I started realizing how many people were going through this and how it gave them the upper hand in court, when you got an alienator that will use anything, guys, remember I said total character assassination. What happens when somebody makes a sexual allegation, a physical abuse accusation? Character assassination. This is why they have the silver bullet. This is why they throw it like they do. And to be somebody that was going through that, especially a man facing that sexual allegation, when it's, let's be honest, society is inclined to believe her, you know, and that's the reason it's so dangerous, is because nobody wants to think that this could happen to a child, that it could happen to an adult, that it could happen to anybody. And if you're a person with a lick of integrity, you instantly want to step in and say, they need to get out of here. And rarely do we get the other side of the story. You know, and that's why the alienator goes on social media. They do all these other things and give these stories about you. That's why they go and post your text messages and stuff like that, because they know that there's an audience out there that's going to read that, that's going to believe them, and that's not going to hear your side, because people don't listen to both sides. They react. Normal, everyday people get gaslit just like we do. And if you're somebody that's maybe a family member that's got a spouse that's doing that to an ex-spouse or something like that, family steps in to protect family. And that's great. That's beautiful. But rarely do we see them stand up and say, no, she's doing this to you. I know that's my daughter, but no. When they could have so much influence. And what's so bad is their grandchildren are going through it, but they will protect the one that's doing these acts more than anybody. And then they go through there, that gaslighting happens. They recruit these people. And this is what's going to go out about you, man. It's going to be character assassination. It's going to be some of the loneliest times in your life. It's going to be financially straining. There's going to be times that you want to give up. There's going to be times that you just don't want to do this anymore. I made it. I know other people that made it. You got it. Take you some time. Don't react. They want you to react. They want you to argue. What do I want you to do? Get in here. Speak up. When we do have these meetings, when we do go to your state, when there is a call for legislation, when something does happen, speak up. We've got to have all hands on deck. A $60 billion a year industry that is not going to go down without a fight. It's just not. We fight for funding. We fight for awareness. We fight to get any attention as to what's going on. As it is, every one of you are soldiers in the war against parental alienation. Maybe you're just now going through it. You don't know where you belong. There is somewhere that you belong in this fight. Every single one of you are soldiers in this battle. And if you want to see that system crumble, then you've got to keep your head in the game. You've got to stop reacting. Think about it. Be smart. Give it some time. Heal. And guys, the solution is easy. Be dad. No, you're not getting to see your child. Maybe you're going through that. Maybe you're going through the divorce right now. Maybe your family's not home when you're coming home. You're still daddy. It's not just about the time with your children. It's about what daddy will do. Daddy is the protector. He's the provider. He will go to the ultimate lengths to be in his children's lives. And when somebody messes with his child, you don't want to do that to daddy. And that's what you are. Daddy ain't somebody you want to mess with. And daddies need to speak up. Don't ever forget who you are. And make sure that tomorrow when you wake up, you look at yourself in that mirror. Give yourself a pat on the back, because if you made it through any of the things that we've talked about tonight, you're a warrior. And you're not forgotten. My name is Eric Carroll, guys. I felt led to put this out there. If this has helped you in any way, that's what it's about. If it even helps one person, if only one person sees it, it makes me feel good. I love you guys, and we'll see you next time. Hey everybody, Eric Carroll here. Thank you for tuning in to another exciting episode of Dad Talk Today. While we fight for you, we would ask for you to please help fight for us. Like, subscribe to our channel, and ring that bell so you get notifications every time we go live. There's also Super Chats, patreon.com/Dad Talk Today, and other ways you can support our channel. Thank you for being here, and we will see you next time.